Hello and welcome to episode 2 of Talk of the Town, a vlog series that explores the minds of purpose-driven entrepreneurs. I'm really excited to be sitting here today with Alfred, who is the co-founder of Forcite, a tech startup company that has created the first ever production smart helmet. Alfred, thank you for having us.
Thanks for having me on Talk of the Town.
I think we actually go way back. We went to high school together, and we've recently reconnected. So it's really good to be able to see, I guess, Alfred's journey up until this point and talk through some of the progression today. First and foremost, are you able to share with the viewers a little bit about yourself?
Absolutely. So my name's Alfred Boyadgis. I started Forcite back in 2013 when I had a motorcycle accident. I went around a corner, went through an oil slick, injured my kneecap in 3 different places, and wanted to create a technology that could see things before it happens. 6 years later, after a lot of different types of products that kind of failed at market, we have this great success, which is the Forcite Mark 1 product. So this helmet has an integrated camera system just at the front here. So as soon as you put it on your head, it'll be able to record video for insurance purposes. It's got an audio system inside, so you can take phone calls and use Siri and Alexa. But most importantly, it has this special light array system that just sits below your periphery vision. I think it'll light up.
It is,
yeah. See there. And this will tell you through our mobile app if there's police in the area, speed cameras, reported hazards from other riders, and navigation, all in the one system.
Yeah, it's got the audio built in. I tried it on a couple of weeks ago, so it kind of just communicates to you while you're riding. Yeah,
we'll do a demo after this for sure.
Yeah, awesome. No, it's awesome. So as you can see, it's pretty slick. Really excited to unpack a little bit more about you. So obviously this is the product of your mindset and obviously the business evolving over time. I wanted to kick things off before we get into the background and your journey.
Right.
I wanted to ask you a yes or no question.
Yeah.
Did you see yourself in this position at this time of your life when you left school, say?
No, absolutely not.
Okay.
I don't think.
Right.
So after high school, I enrolled in industrial design at UNSW.
Yeah.
Being a sort of eager design student, I wanted to be a car designer. That was like my big dream, even though it was like a bit crazy at the time. I went through design school and started riding motorbikes while I was at uni, and I was like, actually, these are cooler than cars. So I'm really thinking other ways.
This is pre-accident?
Yeah, this is pre-accident.
Yeah.
Pre-accident.
So you were very much interested in motorcycles prior, yeah.
Yeah, and then for my final year university project, ironically, I built a smart helmet for motorcycle police, which kind of went the opposite direction after designing it for the customer.
Now you're trying to avoid police.
There are many police that have and bought our product too, so it's really cool in that sense. And that's where it kind of like Forcite first started, in my brain. But didn't actually fully become like a real company until I had that accident. So after I graduated uni, that product won Silver James Dyson Award, and it ended up landing me a really cool job at a design consultancy here in Sydney.
Right.
Then I went on to work in structural engineering, and then eventually for a sort of venture capital IP firm that turned patents into wearable technology, and I started to learn more and more about that. Then after that, I decided with a friend of mine, our co-founder Jay, that we were going to start our own wearable tech sort of consulting gig. We did that for a couple of years. Then I had the motorcycle accident and wanted to create Forcite like properly with him. Yeah. And that was kind of like that moment that I was like, let's do this, let's have a go.
That's awesome. So with that, your background is in all of this crazy stuff. So it just goes to show, you said that you didn't see yourself in this position when you left school or at that time of your life. So I think the key takeaway for the viewers is you could have one path that you think you're going to be on. Things shift, change, evolve over time, and you might end up in a position that's completely different to where you thought you were going to be.
When we were doing this wearable tech stuff, like our first product was a snow sports product. We did a product for the NFL over in the US, but we also OEM'd some technology to helmet brands as well. And we realized when we were talking to large helmet brands overseas that they lacked sort of the vision and the tech side to actually like execute on like a product like this, and that's what we were going to bring to the table. But these companies are so big, and it's hard to get stuff sort of ticked off by directors. So we thought, why not let's have a go at doing this ourselves, like very, very naively. Up until then, Jane and myself were very much like worked in corporate. We weren't looking to build our own business, and it just kind of like we fell into doing it.
Well, yeah,
Right?
you're essentially solving a problem, which I guess is a big tagline when people are thinking about starting up their own business. It's, what problem are you trying to solve? And you obviously had some experience with the accident and
it wasn't actually until about 2.5-3 years ago that we actually put pen to paper on a motorcycle product. And when we first started the business, we created a Facebook group, and we allowed anyone that was interested in motorcycling or motorcycling tech to join the group. That grew to 8,000 people in the first year. I think it's sitting around the same, a little bit more now. And they essentially helped us design this product. Like, we're showing them different cameras, different padding, different materials, and they were telling us what they wanted. And the culmination of all of that was at the end of 2019, we did a thing called Test Fest. We rented out a racetrack over at Ludenham. And when we launched the product at midnight the night before, we sold, they were selling so fast the service crashed. We had 700 sold by midday the next day of the first year. We were only selling 1,000.
Crazy.
I was at the racetrack trying to figure out what a test fest was, and all these people lining up to buy the product, and Stripe wasn't working, and all this other stuff. And, it was chaos. It was like a band doing a tour all around the country.
Amazing.
And then at the end of all of that, we kind of wiped our hands and were like, holy shit, we did this. People wanted this. They bought it. We made money.
Well, you know what? It gained such momentum in obviously such a short period of time, and you've obviously started to explore, to unpack how the company came about and some of the milestones that you achieved throughout that period. Take me back to the start of Forcite again. We were talking the other week, and you said this. I found this really interesting. You actually had the idea, and you went out and you actually pitched it, or you kind of delivered the message, the idea to a number of different companies. I'd be keen to hear about what their response was to you before you obviously had decided to then go and do something on your own. It's amazing to me that such a great idea could be viewed upon as something that someone doesn't want to do.
Look, a big issue with this type of particular technology is it's seen as very niche. Motorcycling is not everyone in the world. It's a small marketplace. Talking to VC Australia and in Silicon Valley, it's really hard just to even get a foot on the door with the word motorcycle in there. So
it's just automatically risky.
It's like, no, we're not going to invest in it, right? Even though we have really good market penetration and it's a really profitable business, and we're not just about motorbike codes, which is something we had to kind of bring to the table to get interested in investment. But we are first and foremost a technology company, and when I started pitching it that way, that's when doors started opening. That's where I started to sit down and have conversations about, where does this technology go from here? Does it go into motorbikes? Does it go into cars? Does it go into defense? And the answer is yes, it could do all of those things. And that's when we started raising capital and moving forward faster. Also, sales helps a lot too.
Of course. You take a leading role in the R&D side of things, right?
I'm a director in R&D here. And also the CEO. But I have a team of brilliant engineers that put the product together with me and with everyone else. Works together.
So talk us through that I guess the initial R&D approach. Obviously, you had your group, and you had customer or future customer input at that particular point in time. What else kind of inputted into the process? Because I think that would be fascinating just to kind of unpack.
Well, technology at the time really gave emphasis to what the product would actually do. So during the development of this product, self-driving vehicles started to boom. So advanced driver assistance system technology, so advanced camera systems, mapping systems, data systems, all started to become more readily available. So when that started to evolve, the technology that we were building for this product and for other products which we're working on became a lot easier for us to put into the R&D pipeline. So it's kind of like a right place, right time type of thing. Wearable technology was getting better, was getting smaller. Everyone has a Fitbit or an Apple Watch as well. So it's kind of like the perfect storm, but it didn't really sort of take off until COVID hit. And I think the reason for that, and a lot of other businesses will realize this, is everyone started buying online. So we went from talking to distributors to 100% customer base, all online. We're talking to everyone, direct lines of conversation with the customer, owning the customer became so much easier. And that really changed our business for like the better.
For the better.
Yeah, for the better and the worst. There's some bad.
Well, I actually had a question. For a little bit later on, but I'll ask it now. I'm assuming that COVID and the last couple of years presented itself a number of different challenges. Before you got a handle on what COVID could actually do for your business in a positive way, was there a time where you really felt, down and out, like you were down in the dumps and you potentially were a bit hazy on the way forward and how you would get yourself out of it?
Absolutely. Like at the sort of, let's say 3 or 4 months into last year, so we've been around like March, April time frame. We've just sold all of these helmets. We were promising delivery, pretty much when like a couple of months after the delivery, which was naive to begin with anyway. But all of the supply lines seized up. We couldn't go and visit factories. No one knew when components were landing. Every day the supplier would tell me next month, and I go to the customer in 3 months' time, right? But when 3 months came around, still nothing to be landed or shipped here. So I guess in that time we were like, well, what do we do? Like, we obviously need capital to keep the business alive and keep everyone employed while we're waiting for more stock. And how do we make money? Like, I was on the government websites looking at hand sanitizer and all that.
Just whatever you can do to diversify.
I was like, well, we're not going to do that. We're just going to keep focusing on the product. But we ended up doing some investment rounds during COVID, which hurt our value, and like a lot of companies went through that same thing. So outside on the sort of the end of COVID, where everything started, arriving on shore, sales start coming up again. Like in this last month, we've made more traction happen than the entire year of last year. Because it's kind of dying down now. Oh, especially in Australia. I don't know how it is in the rest of the world, but definitely in Australia. And I lost a fair chunk of my business, so during COVID. And we didn't know what was going to happen.
How did you feel? Right? I guess viewers might be interested in you've obviously got a way of pulling yourself out of it, and you put in a number of different measures and actions to kind of make sure the business kept on track. But talk me through some of the stuff you were feeling at the time when you were pretty much down in the dumps and when you had to manage customer expectations, and at that point where you're like, crap, I don't know if we're going to be able to make it through or not.
There's like a huge amount of like frustration and this feeling that you're being dishonest to your customer. But you just don't know. I don't know the answer to the question, and I'm trying to put contingencies around it. Like if someone says 1, I say 3, right? Like just to try to do it. And when you feel so stupid when you get to that time, and then it's like, oh, it's not happening still. And then I have to communicate to the customer, and then the customers are getting really frustrated. It's like an angry mob, right? But I don't know how I kept that many customers intrigued in the brand for a whole year while they waited. And I'm so thankful that they waited, because I think the product is really. What's
your waiting list at the moment?
Waiting list now for Australia is 10,000.
10,000.
Just 10,000. Just in Australia, for the product. Once we start bringing it overseas, it's going to be a massive amount. It's just whether or not we can deliver that stock level in a timely way to make revenue. That's the big question for me now.
Logistics is always going to be
the hard bit.
So long as we're in a pandemic, the logistics side of things might continue to be a challenge. But I mean, you've obviously got demand, and you've shown a shitload of resistance throughout the whole thing.
Like right now, even though there's no pandemic really affecting the supply lines as much anymore, now there's a trade war against China and the US and American componentry. So it's like, please, just give me a break here. Like, you guys stop fighting.
I feel like there's always going to be something.
There's always something. Right?
I feel like there's always going to be something. Now that we've spoken about a bit how you felt and how you dealt with that situation, I wanted to do a bit of an exercise, a bit of a comparison, a mindset comparison, because this vlog series is all about exploring the minds of people like you. So I'd like to do a comparison of your mindset, say in 2016 when the business was essentially in its early stages, or you just had an idea, to 2021. Let's not talk about the in-between part now. I just want to dissect how you approach things from a mindset perspective in each one of those years. If we can start off with 2016, can you basically describe your mindset as a business person or just as a normal person, just a bit of both? That would be great.
I guess back then, being kind of green in my own business, very much like, most of my knowledge is from engineering at the time, right?
Yeah.
So to put a product out into the marketplace, wanted to make it perfect for the customer. Try to do as much as I humanly can before showing someone.
Yeah.
The difference kind of now is it's like, let's do as little as we can, get that out, absolutely let them shred us to pieces, fix it all, and then kind of go back, but it's in manageable stages.
Got it.
And it's like that courage to just push something out into a marketplace and see what happens. Really defined like our company and allowed us to move faster.
Why do you think you didn't have that at the start?
Because I think it's like just working in corporate sort of environments where you have to tick off each milestone, go to your project manager, come back, it goes up and down a chain of command. You tend to spend more time on finessing things.
Yeah.
Whereas when you're in a startup, you have way less money, you have to move 10 times as fast.
Yeah.
And everyone is wearing 3 or 4 different hats. And if the weakest link of the business is in sales or marketing, the whole team is going to feel it, right? And if they don't have a product to sell, then we're going to feel it because we're not making revenue.
I work for a startup at the moment in sales, so you really do understand the impact that you have across the organisation. If I don't bring in a sale, then no one's going to be able to deliver anything, and that's what people are employed for in some parts of the business. So I guess it's kind of reminiscent of what you're saying now. Is that kind of what you're?
It's just like your courage to, like, once you've done that a few times, you realise that it's actually not that bad.
Yeah.
Like, you think it's going to be the end of the world. Like back in 2016, if I said like I was going to launch 40 beta units that barely even work to try to sell them to thousands of customers, I'd have a heart attack.
Yeah.
Are you kidding me? Like, it's not going to happen.
Yeah.
Right. But me back like a year ago, it was like, we have to do this. Like, I can't spend the rest of my life, and the team can't spend the rest of their lives not knowing what's going to happen. We have to know, right? You have to take that leap of faith.
Yeah.
And most of the time it doesn't work, right? But it's how you
fail fast, right?
Fail often, but it's in the managing those failures to be sort of repairable and recoverable quickly is really important.
Yeah.
Right. So.
Yeah. So I mean, what was that moment where you maybe? Do you have a specific example or a time in mind where, like, this is kind of drawing a link between 2016 and 2021? Do you have a specific example in mind where that penny dropped and then you just built up that courage to do it?
It was the test fest thing. Okay, we had all these customers banging on the door going, I want to see it, just do it. And we're like, it's not perfect, dude, what are we going to do? And then, our CTO was like, this doesn't work, nothing works. So I'm like, Joe, we're doing this tomorrow. And it's like, so we just chucked them all out there, and people were really supportive, and we told them it was a prototype, and they gave us a hell of a lot of feedback, and it made the product release today. So that sort of mentality and thinking carried through our business. Like we go through this sort of MVP, I'm sure you sort of heard of MVP stage, get that out there, get the feedback, and then roll on to R&D.
So I mean, what is that? Talking about MVP and all of that stuff, it just triggered a question in my mind around, I know things are different day to day. Mm-hmm. No day is ever the same, I think, in a lot of professions, and maybe that's the case for you too. But if you're able to describe your day to day, because I think viewers again would like to get an insight into what you do day to day. Obviously, you're the head of a like innovative tech startup company. What does a day to day look like for you when you actually bring it down to the granular levels?
I think it's looking at the business as a whole and what's going to get the business one small increment more than what it is, and looking at all the tasks of what every engineer is doing, what all the salespeople are doing, and seeing if they're actually like valuable tasks that the company is going to use to either what's its next goal? Is it raising capital? Is it surviving the next 4 months? Is it making another $10 million in revenue? Is it all of these things? And you'll find that once you understand what the goal of the business is, you can better direct like each part of the business to move towards that goal incrementally. Right? Like I think a lot of businesses and especially startups set these huge, big, hairy goals, which is super important for the vision. But it's super overwhelming to how do we break that into a day-to-day
manageable bite size. So do you guys have like a bit of a, it's the buzzword in corporate now, like an agile type of approach where
we use agile approaches now. And Scrum, whatever. So we do that.
Same thing.
Whatever. Like I kind of have my own sort of way of doing it, which is a bit more sporadic.
Yeah.
But I like to, well, my style of being a CEO is to always have a couple of silver bullets up my sleeve, which is like, I'll hit up 10 tier 1 companies, because I never know. If one of those comes in, it like changes the whole direction of the business, right?
When was the last time you did that?
A couple of weeks ago.
Okay. How did that go?
Very well. Two went very well.
Beautiful.
This has been really good actually. So yeah, like those things will change the entire pitch, change the whole business, because now you're working with X or now you're doing something with X. So as all good CEOs should have like a couple of like, who knows? Like if this comes off, it's going to change everything for everyone. So one thing I always do is make an effort to talk to the customer. If a customer comes in with a complaint about the product or anything wrong, I want to hear it firsthand. Right? And keeping an eye on the metrics and the data of the company is really important. So, for example, app usage, website traffic, are our campaigns actually working? And understanding that month in, month out, we need to make a 2 to 5% growth on those metrics. And if you see the curve going down, you know that there's something going wrong, which is going to affect you in 3 to 4 months' time.
Right. So you essentially then pull a lever to obviously alleviate that, or just accept it because you know that there's something happening.
Pull a lever or put a strategy in place to find out why that's going to happen or how we can mitigate it before it happens. So like I'd say 50% of my day is spent in like strategy, business strategy, finance, and intellectual property stuff like that, running business. And the other 50% I like to spend inside R&D. So what's the next system that's going into the product, investigating competitor products, making roadmaps for that, and working with our engineers to find solutions. So that's pretty much it is.
Well, you've essentially segued into, I guess, one of the last major question that I wanted to ask is obviously you are very much the talk of the town. Excuse the tagline. I need to plug the tagline.
Literal tagline.
Literal tagline. Very good as well. How are you going to continue to be the talk of the town? So by that I mean, what are you, as a CEO, as a founder, as a leader, what's that, I guess, one strategic objective that you're continuing to employ beyond today to ensure your business stays cutting edge? Let's just start with that, and then I'll unpack it a little bit more after that.
So I guess being a hardware business in Australia, we're kind of flying the flag at the moment. There's not many hardware businesses in Australia, especially ones of this kind of magnitude. There's a fair few in deep tech and R&D, but consumer-facing product, there's not many. Like off the top of my head, like Neura, LifeX are 2 other fantastic ones that are out there. We hope to be like the 3rd, but 3. That's not a lot, right?
Not a lot.
And we're taking on like Silicon Valley, right? I think as a business we need to be a few steps ahead of what's going to be coming out in the United States, what's going to be coming out in Europe, doing R&D into things that are like 24 to 48 months ahead now. So we are ahead of the curve when we launch it. We actually want to be the first to launch it in the faster way. So we know that bigger companies are going to spend hundreds of millions of dollars over a 48-month period before they get to CES when they launch some product. We want to be there first with an almost half-baked prototype, but stamping the flag for people to come up and see what we're doing. And I think that Australians do this especially well, is working really fast with like a low budget. So we have great grants here, we can keep ahead of the curve through R&D incentives, stuff like that. But just being that like little bit more aggressive and a little bit faster and leaner than a US company, I think is what you can do in Australia for sure.
Are you able to, without obviously spoiling too much, are you able to share a little bit about what's next? Like, is there an evolution of the helmet, or is there something new coming? What can we expect from Forcite in the short to medium and long term, I guess?
So it's definitely not just about the mark lines of helmets. Investing in better display systems, like neuro display systems, computer vision systems that aren't exactly in the helmet but also in a bike, being able to communicate information or telematics better to a rider. So if there's someone coming up from behind you, you can know about it from the side of you, recording all that information really well and pointing that out to a motorcycle rider is going to be like the next big system.
I was going to ask, is there reflective component of your product already? Is there data analytics and insights that you provide to riders at the moment, and will you continue to evolve that in the future as well?
At the moment, we just like pull in data from a few local sources, like for example Google and Waze and stuff.
Of course.
The next stage is to allow riders to report their information, like if there's a down tree or something, they can use the handlebar controller to report it and leave their voice for other riders. So that'll be available to the whole community, but like metrics to the rider is something that we want to do more of as well. So imagine that every time a rider has a hard braking moment, it leaves a little star on the map, and then we can see a heat map of where all these stars are, and then report to the RTA how those roads are quite dangerous. Right? Taking in the surface of the road, so measuring potholes and uneven surfaces by motorcycle riders, is very useful information for everyone, I think.
Yeah, I think so.
Without tracking their location or anything like that.
Well, I mean, so you're obviously you've got it all mapped out. I think, is there anything? I mean, it's a pretty I guess standard business question, but is there any advice or any insight that you would offer to someone who might have an idea that might be a little bit too fearful, that they have some fear about getting it out there or getting the ball rolling to start something up? We really want the viewers to take away some nuggets of gold from you, who's in this awesome position, around how they might be able to actually forge their own path as an entrepreneur as well.
Yeah, like I guess there's two big pieces of advice, right? The first one is if you're doing something that you're not too passionate about and you're doing it kind of part-time to make more cash, it's not going to grow. It's not going to grow into an enormous business. You have to be in it full-time, 100% dedicated. And if you want to attract investors, they have to believe that you're there protecting their money, making it grow every day, right? If you're not that, it's not going to work out. You're going to go into VC meetings and they're going to tell you, sorry.
Well, that's it. You're doing something part-time, your efforts, your part-time effort's going to show if you're in a situation where you're pitching to investors and stuff like that. So.
Yeah, and for the first, I'd say 4 years, I barely paid myself anything. Right, like I was scrounging up a little bit of money for rent or whatever, and some Centrelink here and there, to get to the next stage. And I guess what you do is you kind of have these mental sort of blocks where you go, I'm going to focus on this 100% of my time for the next 2 months. And if I don't get to this milestone, I'm going to quit it, I'm going to get another corporate job, and I'm just going to get the hell out.
So you get some money,
right? And that thought in the back of your head, you get to the 2 month mark and something exciting happens and you're like, okay, I'll maybe give it another 2 months. Next thing you know, 6 years later.
Here we are. Here we are.
Growing the business to its first 10 million in revenue sort of thing.
It's amazing.
So yeah, I guess you got to break everything into small chunks and dedicate yourself to that.
So the approach that you take on a day-to-day throughout your business is essentially what you kind of do in life, or when you go through some challenges as well.
Yeah.
So there needs to be some parallels drawn.
Time does its job. Like if you put the hours in day to day, you don't see the results instantaneously, but over time you'll see the results.
Yeah, right.
It's just like going to the gym, which I should do more of. Too much work.
Listen, you don't have much time, okay? It's understood. Now, I mean, hopefully, now that the business has obviously grown some legs and momentum, you can start to build in some capacity to do some stuff that you might want to do as well.
Yeah, for sure. I think
have you gone on a holiday at all lately?
No, I haven't. No. Okay. Well, I don't think many people have.
Yeah, I know. You got to try and keep it within New South Wales or Australia. Maybe that's on the cards too. No, but anyway, I think that's essentially what I wanted to get out of today. Tenfold, you kind of shared some stuff about your business, shared some stuff about your mindset around the future and around some advice for potential budding entrepreneurs as well. So once again, thank you so much for having us. I'll shake your hand again. Appreciate the chance to sit down with you. Obviously, you do have a pretty hectic schedule, so really appreciate the time, mate.
No problem at all. And if you want to see a helmet, go to ForciteHelmets.com.
That's what I was. You know what? One more question. I was going to say, where can the viewers find you? Where can they find you guys?
If you go to ForciteHelmets.com, FORCITE, you get to see the product. They're currently sold out at the moment, but we're building a waiting list if you want to check them out. Drop us a line.
And you've got an Instagram page as well.
Yeah, we've got an Instagram.
I'll make sure I link them in the video, some fancy way that you can put them into the video as well, so you guys can follow it, and I'll also put them in the bio for you guys to follow as well.
Right, fantastic.
Thanks.